I've been struggling to make this video. I mentioned it previously in my ranking of all the One Piece openings, but this channel and the videos I make for it are purely passion-based. So although I've known for a while that a Hunter x Hunter video is inevitable, the fact of the matter is, Hunter x Hunter did not have the impact on me that I thought it would. Therefore, there's been a clear lack of passion to draw inspiration from. However, I do still want to talk about it, because although I gave it a 7 out of 10 score on my anime list, it's a series that I think about all the time, even after having seen the final episode. With that in mind, I'm going to do my best to once again put my personal feelings into words and explain how Hunter x Hunter failed to captivate me the same way it has thousands of others. This video is going to be a bit different from my previous works, in the sense that Hunter x Hunter was not a purely positive experience for me like that of Black Clover or One Piece. There was a lot of content within this show that I genuinely found kind of boring. What this means for the structure of the video is that rather than going over different topics like characters, world building, antagonists, or whatever else in their own sections, most likely I'm going to group these topics into sections based on whether I like them or not. I think it's important to remember that this is not an analysis or an objective review. This is just me stating my experience and opinions that I don't expect anyone to take seriously or hold any real value to. I can guarantee that there will be things I say in this video that a majority of viewers probably will not agree with, especially regarding the inescapably well-known and praised Chimera Ant arc. So simply keep in mind that my words are not law, and I don't consider them to be. There is no objectivity implied in anything I say. Now, with this long intro out of the way, let's activate our Gyo and see what we're dealing with. The 2011 adaptation of the weekly Shonen Jump manga series Hunter x Hunter, pronounced Hunter x Hunter, by Yoshihiro Togashi is a very well-known anime. Simply looking at my anime list's most popular anime tells you that it is, in fact, incredibly popular. It's the 10th most popular anime out of the nearly 20,000 entries on the website, with over 2 million people having added it to their list. All of this to say that it's hard to be part of the anime community without at least hearing about it. Hunter x Hunter has wormed its way into the heart of the collective anime fandom and has essentially become a modern classic. There are a select number of anime that people tend to bring up in conversation that they assume everybody has seen, and Hunter x Hunter is absolutely one of them. I've been watching anime since I was a child, the earliest of which would probably be the Funimation English dub of Dragon Ball Z Kai that aired on Nicktoons back in 2010. However, it wasn't until around 2013-2014 that I started to get seriously into anime and started attending conventions around 2016. By that point, Hunter x Hunter's 3-year run had concluded, and as the years went by, it would only become more and more popular. I've known about this anime's existence since probably as early as 2017, but I only got around to watching it in late 2020. And when I said earlier that it didn't have the impact on me that I thought it would, what I meant is that I didn't find it to be nearly as good as people made it out to be. Before I get into what I did and didn't like about the content of the series, I want to first talk about the one part of Hunter x Hunter that I absolutely loved. Departure is legitimately one of my favorite anime openings of all time. No matter how I feel about Hunter x Hunter as a series, I think this opening is iconic, catchy, and absolutely fits the tone of the show. I really just love it to death. I thought all 6 variations of the visuals were cool, although naturally the first will always be the most iconic. I like how there's 2 versions of the song that have different lyrics, and as good as both versions of the song are, the full version is even better. All in all, it's an incredible opening, and I'll always enjoy it. I found that pretty much the entire first half of Hunter x Hunter was really good. The Hunter exam, the Zoldyck family arc, the Heaven's Arena, York New City, and even Greed Island are all a great time. If the show had been just this first half, I probably would have given this series an 8, maybe an 8.5 out of 10. There's some real solid material in here. The Hunter exam is really fun, and the reverse tournament, as I like to call it, is an interesting variant of the standard shonen tournament arc. I love that we learn about each of our main characters as we go on. Leorio has a moment during the running phase of the exam where he explains his real motivation to become a hunter, and it's what sold me on his character.
金なんかいらねえって、その子の親に言ってやるのは俺の夢だった。笑い話だぜ。そんな医者になるためにはさらに見たこともねえ大金がいるそうだ。金だ。俺は金が欲しいんだよ。
We learn a ton about Killua's upbringing through the short Zoldyck family arc, and after getting breadcrumbs related to Kurapika's vengeance, he takes the lead role during York New City, where we really get to see him shine.
クラピカは今言いようのない虚しさを抱えていた。
On the other end of the character spectrum, I think the Phantom Troupe makes a great group of antagonists. Also, Hisoka. Hisoka is so confusing to me as a viewer because for every reason imaginable, I should despise him. He's creepy, he's pedophilic, he murders people without any sense of remorse, yet I can't help but really like him. As far as side characters go, there really aren't too many to speak of. The only ones I feel are worth mentioning are Bisky and Melody. Bisky was a huge upgrade from Wing in terms of a mentor figure. She's just got so much more personality to her. Melody acted as a great foil to Kurapika in the York New City arc, and I genuinely would have liked to see more of her. Overall, throughout the first half of the series, Hunter x Hunter felt like it was taking the path of a traditional adventure shonen. That's not bad though. I loved what it was doing, but as we all know, things did not continue that way. I really wanted to like the Chimera Ant arc. I promise I'm not just saying this to be controversial and to go against the grain. I genuinely wish I could understand what makes Hunter x Hunter's Chimera Ant arc such a beloved work, but honestly, I was just kind of bored by it. Naturally, since this arc takes place over 70 episodes into Hunter x Hunter, I'm going to assume those watching this have watched the whole series. In other words, spoiler warning. I'll start with the characters. Personally, I didn't find any of the new characters introduced in the Chimera Ant arc to be very interesting. I'm gonna start with the human characters. Immediately, we meet Kite and his team. This team is completely forgettable, but I don't think anyone is going to argue that they're supposed to be important. Kite, on the other hand, is incredibly important, monumentally so, but Kite himself is kind of bland. I can't recall any moments of him showing much emotion or passion, but alright, that's fine. We don't need Kite to be fleshed out, that's not his narrative purpose. His true purpose in the story is to be a motivating factor for Gon. Kite is specifically written to die by the hands of the Chimera Ants, giving Gon a personal reason to want to fight them. After Kite's incident, we're introduced to two pro hunters named Morel and Nov, as well as their apprentices, Knuckle, Shoot, and Palm. For all the screen time that these 5 characters get in this arc, only one of them managed to be semi-interesting, and that's Morel. The rest of them I could honestly live without. Let's start with Palm. I do not like Palm in the slightest. Her personality is weird, obsessive, and generally off-putting. Also, she, a 22-year-old, insists on going on a romantic date with Gon, who's like 12. So there's that. Shoot is next on the list, and wow, there's really not much to say, is there? He's there, I guess. He fought Yuppie. Knuckle isn't so bad, I suppose, but it'd be hard to say that he's anything much more than a Japanese gangster stereotype. If you've seen a character that has a similar design to him in another anime, you pretty much understand exactly who he is at a glance. Tough on the outside, but has a huge heart. He has a softness for animals, and that's kinda wholesome, I guess, but he's not really a character I find particularly interesting. I remember struggling to get through the episodes of his fights with Gon. I don't even know what to say about Nov. To me, Nov is less of a character than he is a plot device. His most memorable moment in the series is the one where the audience needs to understand how strong Pito's N is, so he, a pro hunter, sneaks into the palace and proceeds to have a mental breakdown over said N ability. Last, and absolutely not least, Morel is one of the better characters introduced in this arc. He may not look like it, but he's actually incredibly smart. The show lets you find that out through his fight with Chitu, and I thought that was pretty nice. I also like his calm, patient personality. Since there are so many of them, for the ants, I'm only going to be talking about the king and his royal guard. And I'll start with my least favorite of the trio, Shia Poof, or simply Poof. I hate this character. Everything about him is so aggravating. There's a point where loyalty goes too far, and he crosses that line by a mile. His whole thing is that he had this preconceived notion about who the king should be, and when the king isn't like that, he starts to lose his marbles. I find that so dumb. He treats loyalty like it's the worth of someone's existence, so he sees himself as better than the other two Royal Guard members. I mean, reading Poof's personality description on the Hunter x Hunter fan wiki makes him sound like someone's toxic ex-partner. Quote, "In the end, Shia Poof became loyal only to his version of the king, not Meruem himself, and would always try to change the king to that version while getting privately enraged when it did not happen." What an absolute hypocrite. For one who values loyalty so highly, he's essentially the least loyal member of the entire colony. There's so much to dislike about him, it's kind of incredible. Next up is Pito. I don't really mind Pito's existence. Her personality doesn't get explored very much because she spends so much time healing Komugi. She's playful like a cat, I guess, and she is clearly intelligent, but am I supposed to like her? In the end, she served as a target to be defeated by Gon rather than a well-written personality, so there's not much for me to say. And of course, the final ant of the Royal Guard is Menthuthu Yupi. The order I chose to speak about the Royal Guard is my personal ranking of least favorite to favorite, which means that Yupi somehow is my favorite of the three. This is odd, you see, because initially Yupi was my least favorite of the three. Over the course of the arc, Poof and Pito don't really grow or change much. Yupi, on the other hand, kind of does. He's the only one of the three that I can recall having a human moment. They're all such simps for the king that they're each annoying in their own right, but after his battle with Morel and Knuckle, Yupi stops and chooses not to kill either of them out of respect. It's this moment that makes Yupi's character for me. After all the frustration we see from him about not being able to take down his opponent swiftly, the calm decision he makes shows a tad bit of real growth in his character. Alright, if the Royal Guard were the opening act, the king is naturally the main event. I have to say, although I try my best in my videos to retain either a neutral or positive connotation towards things, the online anime community completely overpraises Meruem. Maybe the fact that I'd heard so many opinions about him online played a role into shaping my own opinion, but either way, from where I'm standing, I find him very overrated. I had heard that this was one of the best written anime antagonists of all time, up there with all-time shonen greats like Doflamingo or Pain to name two. I genuinely don't understand the love for this character. I found him so boring. Meruem's character arc can be seen from a mile away. After Komugi was introduced, I didn't think for a second that the ants would ever see through to their plan. I think a lot of the love for Meruem comes from his relationship with Komugi, who I haven't really mentioned up to this point. I've seen people say that they absolutely hated her and thought she was super annoying. Personally, I don't dislike Komugi. I thought she was a fine character for what she was. The relationship between Meruem and Komugi was nice, but I'm not sure I really understand it even now. Something that also rubbed me the wrong way about Meruem is how he came to understand humans. I get that the fight with Netero is meant to be the thing that shows Meruem the value of the human race, but it didn't really come off that way to me. To me, it didn't feel like the king changed his mind because he had an epiphany about people. It felt like his mind changed because his DNA was fundamentally altered. As the fan wiki for Meruem's character helps me remember, Poof donates 6/7 of his cells to help Meruem recover from the blast of Netero's heart bomb. So, the way I saw it was, Meruem was cold and heartless when he was born, but now that he's been literally reconstructed with someone else's cells, who is clearly more human than he is now empathetic and understands the value of people. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't feel like he grew naturally. It feels like forced growth for a being that was mentally incapable of it because of the way he was born. Okay, it seems like I had a lot more to say about the characters than I initially thought. However, it's time for me to move on to the plot of the arc and why it didn't work for me. The first 20 to 30 episodes of the arc are essentially just set up for the real meat of the story. My issue with this fact is that in the end, I didn't really feel like the payoffs we got were worth sitting through the incredibly long setup period. Another problem is that it takes another 20 or so episodes after the setup phase for anything to start start paying off. For example, Kite, Killua, and Gon first encounter Neferpitou in episode 85. This episode includes a very important scene in which Kite loses his arm after protecting Gon and Killua from Pitou, and the two boys flee the scene. This is set up for the eventual moment when Gon comes back to NGL to avenge Kite. The episode in which Gon actually avenges Kite and kills Pitou is episode 131. That's a solid 46 episodes between setup and payoff. And it's not like Hunter x Hunter has an anime pacing excuse either. The anime is consistently paced throughout its 148 episode run, with an average of 2 to 3 chapters per episode. If you're unaware of how pacing for manga to anime adaptations work, for a battle series like Hunter x Hunter that came from Weekly Shonen Jump, 2 to 3 chapters per episode is quite literally perfect pacing. I think it's time I talk about the narration. From what I recall, the palace invasion marks the point where I really started to notice the narrator's increasing number of lines. I think it goes without saying at this point, but I am not a fan of the narration implemented in this arc. The amount of unnecessary explanation almost feels like an insult to my intelligence. The reason I have so much trouble talking about this arc and Hunter x Hunter in general is that I'm so conflicted about it. I'm so confused about how to feel towards this show. Whether or not I like it isn't a black or white situation. In terms of this arc in particular, on paper, I think I really like it, but in execution, I'm super bored by it. I think if you were to write down the entire plot of the Chimera Ant arc in the form of need-to-know bullet points, I'd find it fascinating. It's only when you get into the nitty-gritty and add the details and narration and all the other stuff that make it what it is that I don't like it. And that is super duper confusing and contradictory. I know. Alright, shifting my focus away from Chimera Ant for a minute, what was the chairman election arc? I don't even feel like going in depth about it, but I just want to say I really didn't like this arc either. The narrator may be gone, but so are all the characters I was interested in. The only good parts of the chairman election arc were the parts that involved Killua and Gon because they weren't involved in the election. So what you're watching right now was never originally part of the video. Everything that came before this and everything that's going to come after was written and recorded months ago. However, I felt that adding an addendum was necessary because in the time that it's taken me to get around to finishing this video, my perspective on this series has shifted a bit. Let me first start by saying that I still stand by everything in this video. If that had changed, I probably wouldn't have still included everything. All of those thoughts represent what it was like for me to watch the series with the mindset I previously held. But I now have a bit of a more nuanced understanding of Hunter x Hunter, more specifically the Chimera Ant arc. Something I said earlier in this video is that Hunter x Hunter didn't have much of an impact on me, and I'm not totally sure that's the truth anymore. You see, Hunter x Hunter has forced me to realize something about myself and the way that I consume entertainment. When I begin a new series or movie or whatever it may be, what I'm looking to get out of it is a cast of characters to fall in love with. I'm looking for deep and personalized character arcs, growth, and development. This is something I realized I've been doing completely subconsciously. Ever since my first video, I realized that characters are my favorite aspect of stories, but I've reached a point where I've been subconsciously expecting every piece of entertainment to deliver in terms of character. The issue with this being that some stories simply aren't written that way. While one could argue that the first half of Hunter x Hunter is written to be very character-driven, being a story focused on a kid named Gon and his growth and development on his journey to find his father, the Chimera Ant arc changes everything. At the beginning of the Chimera Ant section of this video, I said that I wished that I understood what made it such a beloved arc among its fans. When I wrote that line, I really did mean that. I truly did want to understand. And the crazy thing is, I think I finally do. I had a bit of an epiphany recently regarding how I previously perceived this particular story arc. What I've come to realize is that the Chimera Ant arc is not an arc about characters, it's an arc about ideas. The character of Meruem means very little to me. He was someone that I didn't really feel anything towards from the beginning of his story to the end of it. The reason being that I was watching with the expectation that he would be expanded upon and developed into a brilliant antagonist like people online praise him to be. However, I now see what he truly is. Meruem is not a character. He is merely the representation of an idea. The idea he represents is that of an omnipotent, godlike being living amongst men, struggling to find a reason to continue existing. That reason would take the form of Gungi. If Meruem can't beat a small human girl at a strategy-based board game, then surely he can't call himself the most intelligent being on Earth. Therefore, his plans of world domination must wait. After becoming obsessed with trying to win at Gungi, he slowly develops a sense of affection for the one living being on Earth that gives him purpose. Komugi means more to the king than any of his subjects because she is the only one able to cure the boredom of being all-powerful. Meruem stems from the idea that humans develop a sense of purpose through the innate struggles of day-to-day life in society. Jake the dog says it the best.
Get big, and the chip will fall out of your teeth.
Huh. You think I could stretch out of everything? You're so naive. To live life, you need problems.
That's stupid.
If you get everything you want the minute you want it, what's the point of living?
There's a lot more I could add to make it clear that I genuinely understand the love for this show now, but I don't feel a need to prove it any more than this. So even though the final arc is technically the chairman election arc, the Gon and Killua stuff kind of felt like its own thing. I'd like to refer to it as the Aluka rescue arc, and I thought this part was pretty good actually. The scene between Killua and Nanika was pretty damn emotional. As for the final few episodes, I really enjoyed the reunion between Gon and Leorio. That scene was genuinely one of the only times in the series where I got a bit emotional. Leorio is just so caring, you know? You can really feel how relieved he is to see that Gon is okay, and it's very touching. I think the reason why the anime is allowed to end where it does is because it is essentially the true end to Hunter x Hunter. If you define Hunter x Hunter as the story of Gon Freaks going on a journey to find his father, becoming a hunter who is hunting another hunter, hence the title Hunter x Hunter, then episode 148 of the anime is a great conclusion to that story. Yes, I am aware that the manga goes on past that point of the anime and adopts Kurapika as the acting protagonist. Hunter x Hunter can go on as a series continuing with Kurapika's adventures, but the story of Gon is over, and us anime-onlys can leave the world of hunters mostly satisfied. Going into this video, I thought I knew how this script would come together. I thought I'd present my thoughts on why the first half is good, and why the second half is not good, but through writing it all down, I've come to realize that it isn't that simple. So far, I've had a habit of ending my videos with a basic summary of my thoughts on whatever series I'm covering, so allow me to do so here as well. Hunter x Hunter's opening Departure by Masatoshi Ono is genuinely fantastic and never gets old. The first entire half of the series, right up to episode 76, was pretty enjoyable. It featured interesting world building, likable protagonists, likable antagonists, good side characters, a unique power system, interesting plots, and fun settings. Starting with episode 76, however, the Chimera Ant arc introduces boring ally characters, a detestable antagonistic force, and a main antagonist with a predictable character arc. I want to say that expectations didn't play a role in my disappointment, but I think expectations may be more important than people think. It may also be a combination of other factors, like the fact that I watched Hunter x Hunter pretty soon after catching up to One Piece, the show that became my favorite series of all time. In the end though, while Hunter x Hunter may never be one of my favorites, I have other great shows that will carry that mantle. I'll end things here by saying that this is definitely an anime I could recommend to others. There are already so many people who love this anime to death and disagree with my opinions on the Chimera Ant arc, so I'm sure there are plenty more people out there who'd also love it. But just because it didn't blow my mind doesn't mean it won't blow the minds of others. Hopefully you can all respect my perspective and understand that I come in peace. I'm in no way making this video in order to slander Hunter x Hunter. Anyways, like always, thanks for giving me the time of day by watching this video. Let me know if you agree with anything I had to say. And until next time, I'll see you all later.